Hey guys, this is Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Now, before we get started with today's lesson, if you can please do me a favor, pause, like, comment, share the video on your social media platforms, and also subscribe. So, on today, it is the Sabbath, and I am going to be going into the deities of the gateways, as well as outlining the biblical calendar. I'm not going to go super in depth as to everything in the calendar as far as lining up the feast days with end time prophecies, but I am going to go in depth enough just to prove the paganism behind this holiday, as well as to bring some Afro-Asiatic and West African and Sumerian viewpoints into this discussion. So let's get started. On the Sabbath, we will mainly delve into the many gods associated with what some call the New Year. We will assess if January 1st was celebrated by ancient Hebrews as the New Year. We will use scriptures, math, photos, oral history, and other sources will be employed to compare biblical customs and modern celebration of the gateways. I will give the ecclesiastical months by name, meaning some significant events and placements, as well as the civil months, numerical value, and names according to today's Gregorian calendar. In order to do this accurately, historical timelines and oral traditions will be sourced and provide an insight to dates, times, and seasons. I will first validate the dates of the oral tradition, as it is needed to name months left out of the canon. This methodology becomes essential in the verification of traditions, dates, and customs, changing for people groups based on whom they have been conquered by. So just to let you guys know, the Jerusalem or Palestinian Talmud was completed in 350 BC, and the Babylonian Talmud was written down and expounded upon in 500 BC. So right now what I am going to do is open up this timeline of Ezra so that you guys can just see the dates, so that you can see that the Israelites were in rule and were in power, and also they were writing down their history in the book of Ezra while they were in this specific captivity. As you see, this dates from 4456 BC all the way up to 537 BC. Let's continue. So the ecclesiastic calendar marks the days given by the Most High. This calendar adjusts based on captivity. It goes according to what nation is ruling, so the Israelites can continue their customs outside of their land, making it clear why the Most High chose a people and not a land. The civil calendar is the calendar for the ecclesiastic calendar that we would adjust to. So just for example, the Babylonian, Julian, Gregorian calendar, etc. So basically what I'm letting you guys know is that there are two different calendars biblically. The ecclesiastic calendar is the calendar that we have that maps out our feast days, our holy days, and our Sabbaths. And so that will begin to start in the spring, as we are about to see. The civil calendar is the calendar that we would use today to be able to line up that Hebraic ecclesiastic calendar with whatever calendar it is that you're using as a nation. So today, since we are under Roman captivity, we see that we are using the Gregorian calendar. So if we look at Abib is actually going to be in March to April. The definition of Abib means beginning of months. This is the first month of the ecclesiastical or the Hebrew calendar. Abib is the 7th month according to the civil calendar. In Exodus 12, verse 1 through 2, it reads, "And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you in the beginning of months. It shall be the first month." So we see that the first month was given to the Israelites when they were going through their captivity with the Egyptians. And whenever we would leave out of a captivity, the Most High would literally reset our times and give us the custom so that we can know our dates and that we can begin to line up our Sabbaths and our holy days. So for people who ask us, well, how do you know to keep the Sabbath on a Saturday? How come it isn't a floating Sabbath? People who use the floating Sabbath go specifically just by the lunar. And although we were lunar-based people by keeping the new moon and counting our days from the evening, we also know that because we use these two calendars, we were able to make adjustments to know exactly when our Sabbaths would fall when we were in captivity. Now, what I want to do with you is share some brief Hebraic customs of the Passover, because by calculating, our new year would begin approximately 2 weeks before the Passover takes place. So the Hebraic customs read as such. Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, draw out and take a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. And take ye a bunch of hyssop. Hyssop would be a herb on a branch, and dip it in the blood that is on the basin, and strike the lintel and the two sides of the post with blood that is in the basin, and none of you shall go out to the door of his house until the morning. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood up on the lintel and on the two posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come into your house to smite you. And you shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. Okay, so when we see this Hebraic coast, I really want you guys to think over into West Africa and over into the diaspora. A lot of things that we see in these customs are Hebraic at root. And these are things that we have gotten away from because we have been removed from the laws, statutes, and commandment, but also from our land. But as those of us who happen to be in America, we have gotten away from a lot of our Hebraic customs. So when we see other Afro people doing these things, we automatically deem them as witchcraft. But as we see dipping the herb inside the blood and placing it outside of the post so that it says, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. That's the significance of the hymn that we would sing in a Pentecostal charismatic church. And the Passover was literally what was etching out and recalibrating our calendar a year. And so this would fall between, and excuse me if I mispronounce anything, I do not speak Hebrew. This would fall in between April to May, and this would be called the month of blossoming. This is the second ecclesiastic month and the 8th civil month. And so we will see in 1 Kings 6:1. And it came to pass in 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month Ziph. This is another name for this, which is the second month that he began to build the house of the Lord. And so when we go to the 3rd month, and I suggest that you guys take notes with this so that you can start to write out your own calendar and do a Hebrew calendar versus a Gregorian calendar. So Sivan would fall between May to June, and this means seasons, times. We could think of harvesting. We could think of ripening of wheat. And so this would be the 3rd month in the Hebraic calendar and the 9th month in the civil calendar. The important days, some of them that take place in this month would be Shavuot, or as we see written in what we would call the Old Testament, the Feast of Weeks, or Pentecost. The Feast of Weeks was literally counted 50 days after Passover. So this is how you get Pente. Pente means 50 in Greek. And so if we will read in Exodus 34:22, and thou shalt observe the Feast of Weeks, of the first fruit of weeks and harvest, and the feast of the ingathering of the year ends. And we take it to the New Testament. This is what the Pentecostal church has built their doctrine on. unfortunately, a lot of denominations are not only started by your Asian people, but they are also started by just using 1 to 2 scripture with no context and with no background. So to read as such, Acts 2, verse 1 through 5. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from the heavens as a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as fire, and it set up on each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Ghost, and began to speak with other tongues. And the Spirit gave them utterance. And there dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men, out of every nation of heaven. And so they were actually gathering in Jerusalem because it was custom for them to come back to Jerusalem in this time of Pentecost, in this time of harvest, in this time of ingathering. We will continue and we will see Tammuz, which is Mesopotamian in origin. Tammuz, that's the god, and Tammuz is also a god that was worshipped in ancient Sumeria and ancient Babylon. There are also many scriptures in the book, a few scriptures, in the book of Ezekiel, where we have been seen weeping for Tammuz. And if you take a gander into the Catechisms of Rome, and they created the 40 days of Lent, and you begin to do some deep digging into the etymology, into the worship of this god Tammuz, then you would be able to see that they also wept for 40 days and 40 nights for Tammuz. So when they talk about Lent, this is actually talking about the 40 days and 40 nights for Tammuz, and has nothing to do with the 40 days and 40 nights that Moses went up into the mountain, and 40 days and 40 nights of fasting. That can be found nowhere biblically where we were told to observe Lent. So this would take place between June and July. This is the 10th Hebraic month and the 4th civil month. And so we will see shortly after the Israelites came out of Egypt, they began to become corrupt. And this is believed to have taken place in the month of Tammuz. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us out of Egypt, we were not what is become of him. And Aaron said, Break off the golden earrings, which are the ears of your wives and of your sons. Give me 1 minute, guys. Sorry about that, you guys. If I go off, because it's very late. Okay, and so Aaron was telling them to take off the earrings of your wives, of your sons, and your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people break off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron, and he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tools after he had made it a molding calf. And they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is the feast of the Lord. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink, and rose up to play. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go down thee, for thy people which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I command them, that they may have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto. And these be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought these out of the land of Egypt. And so we see that shortly After they left, they began to fall into idolatry. And so Daniel also made the sun stand still in the month of Tammuz, which can be found in Joshua chapter 10, verse 1 through 15. This took place in 1272 BC. And also Ezekiel chapter 1, 4, verse 4 through 26. The month of Tammuz took place in this instance in 592 BC. So if you go to the 5th ecclesiastical month and the 11th civil month, this is Av. And it is rooted in Abu, which is Semitic, meaning father. And so if we look, the death of the high priest, Aaron, took place. And so what I want to do first, because this scripture name is not found in the canon, since we already established that the Babylonian Talmud was written in the same time span as the canon was, we read as such. We're reading from Taanit 29a, and it says, on the 9th of Av, it was decreed upon our ancestors that they would not enter Ezrit. So that's all I'm going to read for there, just to give that as a source for the name of this month. All of the source links will be linked down below as well, you guys. And so in circa 1273 BC, and Aaron the priest went up into Mount Hor at the commandment of the Lord and died there in the 40th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the first day of the 5th month. And Aaron was 123 years old when he died in Mount Hor. So if we go to the 6th ecclesiastical month, which is the 12th civil month, and this will fall between August and September, Elu, which is Babylonian, and it means harvest. So we will see this take place in Ezra chapter 6, verse 14. And the elders of the Jews builded, and they prospered through the prophesying of Haggai and the prophet, and Zechariah the son of Edo. And they built and finished it according to the commandment of the God of Israel, and according to the commandment of Cyrus and Darius and Xerxes, king of Persia. And Haggai chapter 1 and 1, the second year of the second year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the first day, Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua the son of Hosekek, the high priest, saying, thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, this people say, this is not come the time that the Lord house shall be revealed. So we're going to see that this is taking place in captivity, this book of Ezra, which is why a lot of these names have Babylonian origins. These names were given to us to reset our calendar after we have gotten out of these captivities. And we must know that each time we got out of captivity, we also picked up on the language, the customs, and the rights of, I'm sorry, not the rights, the day-to-day lives and the traditions of the people whom it is that we were around. So if we go to Tishrei, this is going to be the 7th month of the ecclesiastical year. And I'm sorry, the 7th month of the ecclesiastical year and the 1st month of the civil year. So this falls between September and October. And so this was also called Atonement in the time of Solomon. And so all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto King Solomon at the feast in the month of Atonement, which is the 7th month. This is found in 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 2. So the Day of Atonement is found in Leviticus 23, 26, and 32. This is the 7th month. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be holy convocation unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls and an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And ye shall do no work in the same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God. For whosoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. And so if we see the significance of this calendar and we see why it was set, a lot of our feast days are mapped out according to these dates. So when we are unaware of how our calendar is set, we're working on these days, we're eating on these days, we're not offering up our sacrifices, we're not at home, we're not teaching our children, we're just going about day-to-day life. But then we find ourselves off work on these man-made holidays, and we take vacation time and we get paid time and a half. Our holy days were to map out our servitude and to etch out and to symbolize our worship and to mark us as worshipers. Worshipers were marked in their forehead and in their hand. You guys really need to read the book of Ezekiel, read the book of Ezra, and see exactly what was going on. So we have the 8th month, which is Marshafana. And so this literally means 8th month, and this is Akkadian. And this would fall in between October to November. And this would be the second civil month. The name of the 8th month was Bul before Babylonian captivity, as we see in 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 8. And in the 11th year, in the month Bul, which is the 8th month, was the house finished throughout all the parts thereof, and according to all the fashions of it. So was he even 7 years in building it. And if we look in 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 32, and Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah. And he offered up on the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priests of the high places, which he had made. So he offered upon the altar, which he had made in Bethel, the 15th day in the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart, and ordained a feast unto the children of Israel, and he offered up on the altar and burned incense. So as we see once again, the children of Israel, instead of honoring the feast days that the Most High has given them, what did we see him do? He created his own feast day. It was in the same month and around the same time, but he made it into something that it wasn't. This is what we just did last Sabbath with Christmas, not realizing that when we begin to celebrate these pagan holidays, not only are we invoking these gods, but when we celebrate them specifically on a day that is already a Sabbath, we have to beware that it's something called a witch's Sabbath. And so on today, it is Saturday. And when we get to know exactly what is hidden behind this day, we will see what deity it is that we have invoked. So this is just some historical background to prove that the people that we are talking about in the timeline that we are hitting on today are historically founded. So this is an artifact. And so we're about to read about Jehoiachin and Zedekiah in 2 Kings. And so you say Jehoiakim's, his reign can be found in Jeremiah, the 52nd chapter, verse 31 through 34. 2 Kings, the 25th chapter, verse 27 through 30. And so we see that this was Cuneiform tablet found at the gate of Ishtar in Babylon. And this was found in 561 BC. And so remember the timeline that I showed you guys concerning Ezra. And so when we get into this 9th ecclesiastical month, which would be the 3rd civil month, which falls between November and December, Kislev. And so this has to do with the time of Ezra. Now, when Ezra had prayed and when he had confessed weeping and casting himself down before the house of God, there assembled unto him out of Israel a very great congregation of men and women and children, for the people wept very sore. And Jeconiah, the son of Jehiel, one of the sons of Elam, answered and said unto Ezra, we have trespassed against our God, and have taken strange wives of the people of the land. Yet now there is hope in Israel concerning this thing. Now therefore let us make a covenant with our God to put away all the wives, and such are born of them, according to the counsel of my Lord, and those that tremble at the commandment of our God, and let it be done according to the law. This is Ezra chapter 10, verse 1 through 3. This is when they were in captivity, and he stumbled up on the books of the law of the Most High. See, when we are in captivity, our knowledge has been taken away from us, according to Jeremiah the 17th chapter and the 4th verse. And so when we are in captivity, it's not only a supernatural stupor, but it has everything to do with a conspiracy that has been built against us, according to the book of Psalms. So when you find Afro-Asiatic people, Hebraic people, coming into themselves and tapping into who they are as a people, that means that they are awakening while they are still in captivity, just like we see the Israelites do in this chapter of Ezra, in the 10th chapter. So think it not strange when you have people returning to the laws, because we see that this is what has been done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Tevet. This is Babylonian in origin. This will be the 4th month of the ecclesiastical year and the 10th month of the civil year, which would represent what it is that we are operating in right now, which will be December to January. And this literally means muddy month. Now, if I look outside of my window right now, it's snowing where I am, and it is very muddy. And if we go according to, I'm not going to say common sense, because I don't want to be condescending and offensive, because this is new information for a lot of people. But if we just use our environment to be able to line up biblical principle and to see, do these celebrations that they give us make sense, then everything will be able to come together even the more. After these things, when the wrath of the king Xerxes was appeased, and remembered Vashti and what she had done. This is the book of Esther talking about when she went under the under the guise of her cousin, so that the Jews can begin to get into power and gain favor with the king. Vashti and what she had done, and was decreed against her. Then said the king's servant that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the province of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan, the palace, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Hesh, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given them, and let the maiden which pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing that pleaseth the king, and he did. Now in Shushan the palace there was a certain Jew, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity, which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah. So this is just the king's artifact that I just showed you, letting you know that that king had been carried away, who Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. So they had been carried away into Babylonian exile and captivity before this had took place. And so this is who Mordecai was related to. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So Esther was taken unto the king Xerxes into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebes, in the 7th year of his reign. And so Esther was already, or Hadassah, was already a woman of importance through her lineage being related to royalty. So this is something that was already in her blood. And she was left to the rulership of her cousin, who knew exactly what to do. And so if we go and we see Shevet, which is Babylonian in origin, Sabatu, which means seasons of rain. This is the 5th Hebraic month and the 11th civil month, which falls between January and February. Zechariah chapter 1, verse 7 through 8. Upon the 4th and 20th day in the 11th month, which is the month Sebat, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah the son of Berechiah, the son of Edo the prophet, saying, I saw by night, and behold, a man riding up on a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom, and behind him there were red horses, speckled and white. This is a very deep verse I just read, but we're not here to delve into that. And so you can also read Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1 through 7 for that month. And so to wrap up the part about the calendar, Adar 1 and Adar 2 is actually something that's even missed by some Israelites. A lot of times people only count Adar 1, and so they end up holding feast days early, which end up landing their Passover in March. And so then the ecclesiastical calendar ends up being thrown off. And so sometimes there needs to be a leap year so that everything can fall into place. And so Adar 1 and Adar 2, this would be the 6th to 7th ecclesiastical month during a leap year. And this will be the 12th civil month. And so this can, Adar 1 falls between February to March, and Adar 2 takes place mid-March to April. And so Adar 1 is seen in 1313 BC, and this would be the plague of darkness, the 9th plague brought up by the Egyptians as seen in Exodus chapter 10, verse 23. And so this started on the 1st of Adar, which is 6 weeks before the Exodus. And so if you pull up a calendar right now, if you go 6 weeks before the Exodus, using this math, that will place Passover in the middle of April. So pull up a calendar, go to the middle of April, and count up 6 weeks. And this will lead you to Adar 1, which will lead you on a civil calendar of March 1st. And so then when you go to Adar 2nd, which would be what took place, the significant event that took place on this date, March 15th to March 16th, 597 BC. This is when Jeconiah was exiled to Babylon, which we just read about in the book of Esther. And it came to pass in the 7th and 13th year of the captivity of Jeconiah, king of Judah, in the 12th month, on the 7th and 12th day of the month, that evil Marduk, king of Babylon, in the year that he began to reign, did lift up the head of Jokachin, I guess that's how you should pronounce it, king of Judah, out of prison. And he spake kindly to him, and set his throne up on the throne of the kings that were with him in Babylon, and changed his prison garments. And he did eat bread continually before him all the days of his life, as allowance was continual allowance given him to the king, a daily rate for every day, all the days of his life. And so when we look into this would prove to be true, because this falls right in the middle of March. And then when you count up to Passover, which would be 4 weeks later, then you fall right back into the middle of April, which would lead you counting up 2 weeks to prove that Abib starts in the beginning of April. You will count 2 weeks in Passover, and that would bring you back to the beginning of April, which proves that the new year starts in April. So what we are going to do right now is just tap just a little bit into some of the captivities, and also give you some scripture to show you and prove to you that they have always conspired to change dates, seasons, and times. Daniel, the 7th chapter, verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change time and times, and the dividing of times. And as you see, time equals 1, times is 2, and the dividing of times equals a half. And so this would be 3.5 years. And so Daniel, the 7th chapter, verse 4 through 7, breaks down the different beasts. And so as you see, the first one would be the Babylonian Empire seen in Daniel chapter 7, verse 4. The Medo-Persian Empire, which is in the 5th verse. The Empire of Greece, which is in the 6th verse. And then you have the Roman Empire. And so in 2 Kings chapter 24, we see Judah and Assyria. And then Nebuchadnezzar II begins to, Babylon begins to take over. And so the Medos, they joined Babylon in overthrowing Assyria, because Judah was actually part of Assyria at that point. And so the Babylonians were that power that were taking over Assyria. And so the Medes, they actually ended up getting popular by joining onto the Babylonians. And so Babylon actually ended up falling to Cyrus the Great, who was a Persian. And so this is where the rebuilding of the temple begins to start, which actually introduces Second Temple Judaism. And so this is where the influences of Zoroastrianism begins to take place. And so when that captivity begins to end, it's because they are taken over by a Hellenized Greek. He is Antiochus Epiphanes IV. And so he is the king of the Seleucid Empire. And so if you go into the book of the Maccabees, the 5th and the 6th chapter, you'll begin to see the revolt and the wars between the Maccabees and the Hellenistic Jews and this Hellenistic Greek. So a lot of times what happened is, just now, we're going to use modern day terms. You have Hellenistic Jews, which are Black Christians, and then you have the regular Jews, who are Hebrews, who are awakened to their culture. And the Black Christians are always going to take the side of what's Hellenized, what's sun-based. And then you are going to have those who are into the laws, the statutes, and the commandments. They're going to do that. See, Black Christians, they will have a sense of what the law is, but won't keep the law. They'll teach that the law was done away with, but they're still a spirit-based people. And we understand that people are, not everyone, but some people are asleep because of the Most High. Other people are being willful, disobedient. So you would always have Israelites who would take the sides of their oppressors, and they would do what was easy. And we're going to see as we continue that modern day Christianity has done exactly what was being done in the time of the Maccabees, which was taking Israelite customs and coupling them with paganism so that they can still have some type of appeasal with what it is that they wanted to do. So if we see the histories of the Jews and the Roman Empire, and so the history of the Jews and the Roman Empire, and so the traces of the interactions of Jews and Romans began in the Roman Empire. And so this was a diaspora that had migrated to Rome. And so they migrated from the land of Israel, Anatolia, Babylonia, and Alexandria, which is found in Egypt. And so when you begin to dig into some of these councils, you'll be able to see that the Egyptians from Alexandria and the Romans actually came together to give us the councils, which is what gave us the canon, as well as the holidays that it is that we see being celebrated today. And so the Roman general Pompey conquered Jerusalem, and this is when the Romans began to dispose the ruling Hammurabian dynasty. And so that's something that you guys really, really should dig into, the Hammurabian dynasty. I suggest that you look into the Edomites versus Idumeans, and that you just do a lot of deep digging so that you can see the differentiation, but the familiarity between all of these people. And so if you see that Judah, Samaria, and Idumea became the Roman province, you will see this even in the time of the New Testament, when you have Agrippa and when you have them taking up and Pilate. And so you see the mixture and the mingling of Edomites and Romans at that point as well. And so As we read down, it begins to talk about how Christianity began to develop from Second Temple Judaism. And so during Second Temple Judaism, as I just said, this is where you see the influence of Zoroastrianism, and this is where you more so see the form of monotheism. And that's another deep lesson on its own. But it also says that Constantine the Great moved the Roman capital from Rome to Constantinople. And so if we go and we see that Constantinople was actually part of the Ottoman Turks. And so it was renamed Istanbul. And so that's something that we're about to get into. And so here we have the statue that's described in Daniel. And so this is very, very, very important. Clearly, it's built up from Babylon, the kingdom of the Medes and the Persia, ancient Greece, the kingdom of ancient Greece, and the feet of clay and the feet of iron. What I want you guys to really focus on, though, is the two different legs. That's something that's often missed. And what it is my endeavor on today is to tie in the Roman and the Islamic connection so that we can see that we are operating against two sides of the same coin. So we don't be so focused on Rome. We're not so focused on Babylon, but we also need to know what's going on beyond what it is that the finite eye has seen. So now we're going to bring in some more archaeology. And so this is a cuneiform cylinder. This is an inscription, of Nebuchadnezzar II, describing the construction of the outer wall, of the outer city wall of Babylon. And this was 604 to 562 BC. And so this is quoting Nebuchadnezzar. And we know Nebuchadnezzar loved to boast. I built a strong wall that cannot be shaken with brute men and baked bricks. I laid its foundation on the breast of the netherworld, and I built its top as high as the mountain. Doesn't that sound just like when Nebuchadnezzar got puffed up and the Most High warned him about getting puffed up? And he said, "This is Great Babylon, which I have built." And so not only do we have scripture backing up, but we have archaeology as well. So we're also going to see another cylinder. And so this would be the Cyrus cylinder. And so this Cyrus cylinder, Babylonian account of the conquest of Babylonian by Cyrus in 539 BC of his restorations of various temples and statues. So we see, and this is the British Museum. So all links to all of this will be available. Like to provide you guys free sources so that you could go digging yourself, whether it be online or whether you decide to buy physical books. We like to do things that's easy and accessible so that people can actually learn and not just be talked at. So if we focus back on Istanbul, which became the capital of the Roman Empire, and this was formerly known as Constantinople, which was ancient Byzantine's largest principal and seaport of Turkey. And so the Byzantine Empire and the Ottoman Empire. So remember those two legs, guys. And so the Byzantine Empire is the eastern half of the Roman Empire, which survived for 1,000 years after the western half had been crumbled into various feudal kingdoms, and which finally fell to the Ottoman Turkish onslaughts in 1453. So remember that this empire fell to Ottoman Turkish Empire, okay? So it's Eastern Roman, and it fell to the Ottoman Empire. And so the Ottoman Empire created by Turkish tribes in Anatolia. And so the Ottoman period spanned more than 600 years. And so if you do some more digging, you guys, the Ottoman Empire ended up just crumbling not too long ago. As it says right here, the Ottoman period spanned more than 600 years and came to an end only in 1922. That was not too long ago at all. How many years ago was that? 100 years that this empire began to fall down. And so now we're going to see what the significance of knowing this is. What I also want to show you is that the Ottoman Empire, since it's Istanbul, is Turkey. Let's see what Turkey's main religion is. Muslim. Islam is the largest religion in Turkey. More than 99% of the population is Muslim, mostly Sunni. And so even though this is not an end-time prophecy event, it will behoove you guys to go break down those wars that's taking place in end-time prophecy, and also to study on the difference between Sunni Islam and Shia Islam. So here we go. This is what's going to be very important, especially for my Christian followers. And so what this is for some reason, because I can't pull up the official website of the Catechisms of Rome, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, excuse me. This is a PDF which will be linked. And so this is talking about the Sabbath, but this is proof from their own book. As you see, that they changed the Sabbath to Sunday. So in brief, it talks about to observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy, which is found in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 12. And that the seventh day is the day of rest, which is found in Exodus chapter 31 through 15. But if you look down, it says that the Sabbath, which represented the completion of the first creation, has been replaced by Sunday, which recalls the new creation instigated by the resurrection of Christ. Now, who gave them jurisdiction to change the Sabbath, which was etched out at creation? But once again, we just go on with what's popular and what's given to us instead of doing research on our own. Let's continue. The Julian calendar was given to us before this calendar that we are using, and it was introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 BC and replaced the Roman calendar. And so this realigned with the sun. The introduction of the Gregorian calendar allowed for the realignment with the events. And so it's very important for them to line things back up with the worship of the sun, being sun worshipers. There's a lot of information on here that I will not be reading in its entirety. You guys could go to that in your free study time. Now we are going to get into the gateways, hermaphrodites, and the phallus. And so, of course, this month is called January. And a lot of people talk about the god Janus, and I'm just going to use this god to talk about even more, so that you guys can truly see exactly how deep this goes with the worship on this day. So in ancient Roman religion and myth, Janus is known to be the god of the beginnings. Remember that gateways, transition, time, duality, doorways, passages, frames, and endings. He is usually depicted with having two faces. The month of January is named for Janus. And so he's also known for possibly being a god of chaos. And we know Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And we know that those primordial waters were chaotic. So this is what they try to lean things back to. The name of the god Janus, meaning in Latin, which literally means arch passage or doorway. And so we see that in the book of Exodus, when our power told us to mark the doorway, and if we go and we read the Shema, which is in the book of Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter, verse 4 through 9, it talks about when you read that you are literally shielding your gateway and your door and your passage. And when you begin to break down the name of the Most High, and it talks about the nail. What they like to do is take what was originally ours and corrupt it and make it theirs and switch it. So now this god Janus is beginning to get the credit that should belong to the Most High and the Most High alone. And it is also a cognate with Sanskrit, which means to go. And so I really want you guys to pay strong attention to the ancient interpretations, because this is what we are going to really get into. So remember that it's proposed that it means to be open. And so opening, so think of opening of portals. As I said, in this etymology, the notion would be chaos would define the primordial nature of God. And so another proposition would be that he has the duality of Apollo and Diana. This is about to get really good, you guys, so that you can see that it was talking about the difference between the sun and the moon. And the third one means that it will be a god of transition. And so we see the picture of Janus. He's seen with 2 faces, but he also is known to have 4 faces. And we see in his hand a key and also a scepter, which is a symbol of authority, a key of gateway, opening and closing. We see that in the book of Exodus, when Moses had Aaron's rod, what was he able to do? He was able to open the seas and they parted. When you look over to the Akan of Ghana, they actually have gold scepters just like the one that Janus is holding right here. So we're going to go into the meaning. And Janus literally means, a Janus word is a word that it's its own opposite, like fast, which can refer to both moving quickly and to staying put. So Janus literally means that Janus can be its own opposite. So if we think about it from the viewpoint that we're teaching right now, the word Janus, if it be masculine, it also means that Janus had the ability to be its own opposite. And we know that the opposite of masculine is feminine. Male, female, Diana, Apollo. Let's continue. So let's look into Shiva, guys. Shiva comes from the Hindu culture, the Hindu religion. So Shiva is the third god, and the Hindu will just say Trinity. It's made up of Brahma and Vishnu, which are the 2 other gods. And so Shiva's role is to destroy. You guys really need to look into the significance of the destroyer. The destroyer has the ability to open portals. And so we see what Shiva looks like. And so this is saying that Shiva is often represented as a man with a blue face and a throat, also has a third eye, a cobra necklace, but that Shiva can also be represented right here. Shiva is sometimes represented as half man and half woman. His figure is split halfway down the body, one half showing his body and the second half of that of Parvati's. So we see the hermaphrodite images with Shiva, just like we have with Janus. So we're going to go to this brief video about Shiva.
Hey! We wanted to invite you to our all-new upcoming Life on Fire challenge.
Actually, I'm going to wait to play that one, you guys. So when we think about Shiva and destruction, let's go back to the picture so that we can see the similarities between how Shiva looks and Janus. And so we see the one hand up, one hand down, and then you have the trident and even that pose. And so it is very important to know that because Shiva is of Hinduism, that by invoking Shiva and by invoking that which opens, you now have opened up yourself to be exposed to the Kundalini energy that it is that Shiva and her opening gives out to people. And so what we're going to play right now is the Kundalini manifestation in churches.
Marilah kita selalu ketawa untuk diri, untuk orang lain, ketawa untuk keluarga, masyarakat, dunia, dan negara. Makanya apapun yang kita cari di dunia ini, kita menjadi orang pintar.
I showed you guys that so that you have some visual aspects to see the undeniable correlations between exactly what is taking place. And the last part that you guys saw, just for your liking, if you look into these love movements and these love cults that were coming into America, that was being led by mostly Vedic people who was practicing Hinduism, and that's how yoga and all of these hippie movements end up coming into the United States. So let's go to Africa with it. So Papa Legba. And so what I am not doing is teaching on voodoo, hoodoo. That's not my religion. That's not my culture. I'm not about to call anything good, not to call anything evil. The scripture says that you do not revile the gods. So let's continue. So there is a book, African Gods and Catholic Saints in the New World, Negro Belief by Melville J. Herkowitz, page 637, begins to talk about Papa Legba. So what I want to do now is talk to you a little bit about Papa Legba. So let me show you guys. It's this video of this YouTuber whom I actually found because she showed up in my algorithm about Papa Legba. There we go.
If you want to sell online, make sure you stand out. Go to Wix Ecom.
All the way back to West Africa, where a lot of nations are descended from. Benin is specifically where they say a lot of nations come from, but there's a lot of other places as well. Heard of in the Sumerian, Ghana, a lot of other countries as well in Africa. The reason Papa Legba is so popular in the Haitian voodoo religion is because Papa Legba is literally the gatekeeper. He is the communicator between life and death. If you were to have someone that you wanted to talk to, say they passed on, you would go to Papa Legba in order to contact this person or this spirit or whatever other Lua you want to speak to, because you can't get to any Lua without contacting Papa Legba. If you know anything about voodoo ceremonies, you should know that you have to summon Papa Legba first, because he's the one that opens the gates for the Lua to be able to communicate back with you. Without doing that, you're not really going to get anywhere, because he is the only one with the keys to heaven or hell, or where the Lua are. You have to have his...
Okay, guys, so as you see, Papa Legba is the gatekeeper. So Papa Legba was first worshipped in West Africa in the kingdom of Dahomey. And when you begin to look at the kingdom of Dahomey, where a lot of the Yoruba are the tribe of Dan, they went down into Haiti and into Cuba. And so when you begin to look at the way that they worship and the way that they end up migrating, they actually ended up going into Louisiana. And so this is where it gets very interesting to tie it in to today's time. And so in Louisiana, a lot of us know that it's steeped in voodoo. And so with that being said, the Azusa Street experience is what actually ended up infiltrating a lot of our Black churches. And this is how you get the charismatic movement of speaking in tongues and of shouting and doing different things. And so this was brought in by William Joseph Seymour, and he was born in Centerville, Louisiana. And so at first he was a minister of Charles Parham. Whether I agree with that or not, it's neither here nor there. Now, Charles Parham was actually teaching speaking in tongues correctly. He was teaching that it was another language, normally a Hebraic, Aramaic, that can be interpreted by someone who spoke that same language, but it was under the auspice of the Ruach HaKodesh that you was able to speak that language. So what William Seymour actually did was he ended up corrupting the teachings of Parham. And it ended up making so much news because people were saying to have psychosis and religious frenzies, and things just went left. And there is a great link that I'm gonna leave you guys to put all together. I'm gonna just go into a little bit. I went in depth with this a while ago on my Instagram page. I did an entire lesson on the voodoo influences.
Often members of the community come to us.
Here we have this large pyramidal structure, and the witnesses, they can't believe
Mambo for assistance as a
Okay, guys, so what this is a voodoo ceremony. And as you see, they're dressed in all white, just like our Levites would be. But what we also need to know is that the Druids would dress in white for their ceremonies. You see a convert here, a white woman. And normally you don't have people of other races at voodoo ceremonies, but there are people of these of other races, ethnicities, people groups who practice voodoo as well, but they have to have permission of somebody. And so this is not anything that I am an expert on. I will refer you to Chronicles of Zoe, the young lady who page that I just showed a clip from. And so with that being said, pay attention to the similarities between what's happening and what I just showed you guys.
last resort. Roseanne O'Connor came to Mambo Angela with an urgent request for help. Could the powers of voodoo somehow succeed where modern medicine has failed?
My husband and I very deeply want to have a child. And 42 years old, and it's very impossible, and it will be a miracle when it happens, because I've been told over and over again I will not be able to have one.
Could voodoo help Roseanne O'Connor achieve her dream? Along with her husband, she would accompany Mambo Angela and a group of other voodoo devotees on a pilgrimage to Haiti in search of a miracle.
Okay, let's fast forward some so you guys can see the ceremony that's about to take place.
Dare to pray and ask if God would allow us to use the water on these two people to be blessed so that they can conceive and have a baby that they've been trying to have for years.
For Roseanne O'Connor, who has never been here before, the ritual is a transcendent spiritual experience.
As I was able to sit there in Sodo and have be bathed by the waters of the Moa and feel that spiritual.
Let's fast forward some. I'm gonna link this video down below, you guys, because it's a lot in this video. So as we see, they are having a baptism to conjure up a fertility deity so that her and her husband can become impregnated. This is a fertility rite. So when we begin to look into the statue of Papa Legba, there is it because this is linked to phallic worship. It's a phallic symbol. And so this is the symbol of Papa Legba. And so this is a statue of the West African deity Papa Legba, and he is linked between the living and the dead. And so now, something that we all see all the time. And so Baphomet is actually a deity. I know a lot of people be like, oh no, that's just something that people make up. But the Baphomet is worshipped by the Knights Templar, and it's actually has been associated with the Sabbatic goat. And so as I was saying, that these people who worship in this way, they have their own Sabbath. And so it is the symbolization of the equilibrium of the opposites. Did I not say that Janus words are literally words that means to be the opposite of itself, meaning that Janus is the opposite of itself? And so off the Baphomet is half human and half animal, half male and half female, good and evil. And you see it has the one hand up, one hand down. And it also has this 5-point star, which is represented by Samuel and Lilith. And these names are seen in our extra biblical text and in the oral tradition as well. So we see that. And if you also, some people say this is the snake of Hermes. So I'm not here to do a Baphomet breakdown. I'll come back and do that. The hand up, the hand down, as above, so below. As Christ said, whatever you bind in earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loose in heaven. This is what it is that they use. And so we have Pazuzu. And we know that because society, I'm not going to say everything, but there are civilizations that give their accreditation to Mesopotamia. And so Pazuzu is an Assyrian Babylonian demonic god who was most popular in the first millennium. And so we see that he was seen also in the epic of Gilgamesh, and he's the demon of the underworld. So this would be the equate to the Baphomet. This will be linked as well. As you can see, there's amulets, and he could be seen as a sexual life per se, and so he's also seen as a protector. So we see that everything leads to fertility, whether it's on the male side or the female side when it comes to the worship that has taken place on today. So Diana and Apollo for a certain, so I'm going to read where Diana was actually present and worshipped in the Bible. Acts chapter 19, verse 24 through 28. For a certain man by the name of Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no gain into the craftsmen, whom he called together with the workmen of like occupation, and said, Sirs, you know that by this craft we have our wealth. Moreover, you see and hear that not alone at Ephesus, but almost throughout all Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away much people, saying that they be no gods, which are made with hands. So that not only this our crafts is in danger to be set at naught, but also the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipeth. And when they heard these things, they were full of wrath and cried out, saying, Great is Diana of Ephesus. So this is showing you that Diana was being worshipped in the time of the Israelites in Ephesus, exactly where they were. So if we knew that there were people who converted to the worship of these other gods, even while others was keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, we should not be surprised about anything that we see on today when it comes to the division of religion and culture among us as a people. So we see that this is Diana, and she is also linked to Artemis. This will be linked down below. And so Diana is also associated with Venus, also associated with being the light giver and the light bringer, divine, heavenly, godly, belonging to the celestial realm. We don't have that much more, guys. We're going to bring it in by bringing in the rest of the Islam connection, because this is Roman. We did Grecian. We're doing Grecian. We're doing African. You see, this is Artemis. You'll see her in the comic books as well. And we all know that Diana was represented in the comic books as Wonder Woman. Show you some of that soon. So this is what I wanted to show you guys about Artemis. She is represented as a breasted deity, a fertility deity. And this is in Turkey. This is in Ephesus. And so another breasted deity, the way people depict what you guys should look into. See, they listed Acts 19:28, Acts 19:35. It's a lot of information out there on this, you guys. So another breasted deity that people say is a breasted deity is El Shaddai, which you guys should look into. And so we all know what Wonder Woman looked like. We know that Wonder Woman has a lasso, and she has powers. But let's go right back to Africa. This is Oya. This is Oya. This is where Wonder Woman got everything from. Oya is another Orisha. And so, according to this, Oya gave birth to 9 children, 4 sets of twins, and a 9th child, Igun. And so, you guys should know a little bit, or maybe not, about the Divine Nine. Look into that. So with the divine nine, those that's linking you back to Egypt, but it's also going to go into talk to you about the fraternities and the sororities and where it is that they get their origins. And so Oya is also associated with funerals. Part of her duty is to carry the souls of the dead to the afterlife. She helps people who die into transition into the afterlife and carry the souls of the dead to their final resting places. Is that what Papa Legba do? Gateway, the garden of the graveyard. She's in charge of cemeteries. And because she is called the great mother of witches or the elders of the night, she has psychic abilities. She can perceive things beyond this world and call forth the dead in discussion. She can even hold them back as if she feels that they have unfinished business on the earth. Let's continue, guys. Told you this thing goes pretty deep. And so there is another goddess associated, as we saw them dipping the woman into the water. And so this not even going into like mommy water or all of the orishas in the different African cultures. And so this is Yamaya. And she is the goddess of the river. And so her number is 7. And she rules over the sea. She is maternal, yet very fierce. She is clever. She goes to war. She's an expertise with a machete. She is also strong-willed, a watcher over her children. She is a fertility deity. And you see, she has a trident, just like Janus, just like the other gods that you saw. She also has a brother, just like Diana has a brother. And so, you see that? She has a brother. And she is Yeoma Iyaya, which means mother whose children are the fish. Oh, I could talk about Enki and Enlil and all of that, but not on tonight's Dagon, the fish god. It goes deep, you guys. So then we have Oshan. Now, Oshan is y'all favorite. After you see Oshan, then you should really be able, because a lot of things, I know y'all are like, oh yeah, the Baphomet, that comes from the fake Illuminati. But now that we rapping this voodoo and things into it, a lot of you favorite rappers and singers and things are showing you that they not only pro-black, but they pro-voodoo. And so Oshan is known for her beauty, her sensuality, fertility, of course. And just as Venus is to the Romans, Oshan is the love goddess of the Yoruba. See? It's always a connection. So for you Black Christians who are so anti-voodoo, so anti-hoodoo, and y'all are so conspiracy theory and conspiracy minded, when I tell you that you are worshiping a pagan holiday and you don't listen to me, that's what it is that you are doing. You participating in that which it is that you be calling wicked. But you guys just look at it from the white people's side and not realize that these are practices that has been going on for a very time. And so, in conclusion, we are going to be about 3 more minutes, I'll say. This is the Islamic female trinity. And so you all saw, well, okay, so what I did not clarify is that Oshan, Yamaya, and Oya are the 3 female trinity. There's 3 of them. And so this is Alat, Manat, and Al-Uzza. These are the Islamic female trinity. So what I want to tell you guys about Islam, because we know that the Most High is the Elohim of the Hebrews. We are not the only Hebrews at all. You have Islamic Hebrews. You have Hebrews over in Eurasia, the Japanese of Anu or Edu. You have Native Americans with Hebraic markers. There's a lot of Hebraic people. But what we have to realize is that they corrupted everything that was given to us. And so Bahira is actually was Arabian and Nestorian. And so this was a form of Christian medicism. And so he was actually the uncle of Muhammad's wife. And he actually groomed Muhammad. And so this is how Islam became corrupted, because much like the Israelites, they believed in one God, but they acknowledged the existence of others, which we would call Hinduism. And then after a while, Muhammad came into contact with his wife, and they began to knock down all of the statues, and they became monotheistic, which leads us to Allahu Akbar.
This is Wix.
And so it is very important also to know that this is the church where Muhammad met the priest.
Byzantine. Okay. But you what and here on 14th century they had built this mosque, we call it Fatima Mosque.
Fatima Mosque, right? Is destroyed also.
For Muslim and for Christian here.
Okay.
Syria.
Okay, so Muhammad met here with a priest many times when he was a merchant before he came. And what is the name of the church again? Huh? The name of the church. Buhaira.
Okay, guys, so I'm going to link this so that you can watch it in its entirety. So we're going to tie in the Islamic form of worship with Diana.
The crowd, the city clerk said, "Men of Ephesus, for what man is there who does not know that the city of the Ephesians is the temple keeper of the great goddess Diana, and of the image fallen from heaven? Clearly the image which fell from heaven was a meteorite. And the worshippers of Diana all worshipped her in the same way, by shouting, 'Great, great, great is Diana.' This is exactly how the Muslims praise Allah. And they bow toward the city of Mecca, repeating Allahu Akbar over and over again. For Allahu Akbar means Allah is great. And it's the very same cry heard by the worshippers of Diana as they bow toward the great city of Mecca. Mecca has become just like Ephesus, the city which held the meteorite image which fell down from heaven. They too chanted that Diana was great. For the Muslims, just like Ephesus, also bow down to an image which fell from heaven. And Muslims are seen kissing and caressing the stone as if the stone was a woman. Indeed.
Okay, guys. I'll also link this video so you can watch it in its entirety. It also talks about the Turkish Ottoman in the end time. So that will conclude our Sabbath lesson on today about the new year. I really appreciate you guys coming back to my channel. This is Jacolia of Jacolia Gems, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you could like, comment, share, and subscribe, it will be greatly appreciated. Bye, y'all.